I found it interesting in preparing for this interview that years ago, you pretended to be Lee Steinberg, and it worked its way all the way up the chain when you called over, I guess, to MSG.
Yeah.
Gave you that idea. How did you actually get away with it?
Well, I didn't get away with it because my goal at that point was to like really impact change. As a 13-year-old, I thought I was going to be able to pretend I was an agent and have a real change happen. That's how delusional I was. But I really felt in general as a kid that why not try and do whatever I could? And like, that was my mentality in all the things I was passionate about. And when it came to playing sports, some things like I couldn't control. So at that point in my life, I was just so obsessed with the Knicks and so obsessed with my favorite player, Mark Jackson, that I was like, you know what, man? I'm calling in. Like, at whatever cost, I got to try to make this work so Mark Jackson keeps his starting point guard position. And that's where my head was at like 13 years old. And it was quite a memory. It was pretty crazy experience. And it's been funny to be able to tell that story now to some of the people that were like present at that time.
What did Mark say when you told him that story?
Well, Mark's heard like 800 stories from me of how obsessed of a fan I was, because I think for him, you know, he had an amazing career and well respected, but you wouldn't see like many kids like me growing up that were die hard like Mark Jackson fans the way people are about the LeBrons and MJs. You know, in New York, when Mark came on the scene, it was at this point in my life where it just had such an impact on me. And I kind of rode the waves of his ups and downs in his career. And, you know, I think whenever he hears these stories, because we become such close friends, he's kind of like, man, stop. Like, I'm good with these crazy fanatical stories of your childhood.
What was more fascinating to you, Mark Jackson at the free throw line measuring where that whole measure thing, or was it his bringing the ball up, kind of posting up while he was bringing the ball up? What fascinated you more?
Well, early in his career, he had these like famous celebrations where he would do the airplane and go like this with his finger. So I obviously was doing the same thing in my like middle school basketball. But you know, this is like his signature. This was epic, man. The backing up was because he got slow. You know what I'm saying? That was his way to do it.
Do you ever look at the what if factor when you look at the fact that the Nets and Kevin weren't successful in winning a championship but came pretty close, versus the Warriors out of nowhere last season won another one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the human side, you think what if to everything. You know, I think about what if for decisions I made, but you quickly realize that that's just not how the world works. And, you know, the thing with Kevin's career is it's so elite. And his body of work is as incredible and stands next to any one of the best. And he still has a long way to go, especially here in Phoenix, that you have to know that that happened to get him here. And I believe great things are going to happen here. And, you know, that's how you have to look at these decisions. But of course, you think about that stuff, you know, especially as a New Yorker. It was really, you know, I love flying out here. And it was actually pretty annoying to drive to Brooklyn from the city because I was used to just going to the Garden. I got used to that. Now I'm flying west to come check in with my man. But I got to tell you, as soon as I landed here, it all makes sense. This is like the life, man.
Yeah, Phoenix, listen, man, Phoenix is dope. You got a lot of young people, your age, my age, younger, coming out there and living.
I'm not young.
Young is how you feel, though. You exude youth.
Oh, I feel young.
Yeah, young. What's that song, Mr. Hudson? Young forever.
Yes, young forever. Nah, I feel that way.
Tell me something. When you and I talked during our All-Star, when we bumped into each other, that I happened to be looking at Fade to Black, and your name was in the credits. I've watched that movie 50 million times, and your name stood out for executive producer credit. What did it take for you, your day-to-day role in just making sure that concert at Madison Square Garden was a success on the digital side for that movie that was Jay-Z's last hurrah at the time when that Black album came out?
Yeah, well, I was actually a producer on it, and at that stage in my life, I really was doing the work. Like I was in the middle of it. Not saying that EPs don't do the work, but it's a different level of strategy and thought and architecting and marketing and selling. I was helping with music clearances and sitting in production meetings and sitting in edits and, booking sessions and doing all of it. But I have to say, and I'm not comfortable ever rewriting history. I never like to start to paint a story of my involvement in something that it wasn't ever. I'm cognizant of that because I came from the music industry, and that was that's a no-no. Social media has changed that because now you can do that if you want. But I happen to think that I really had a lot to do with that entire project, because the amazing story is I met Jay-Z's manager. He came to meet me at this company, Radical Media, where I was doing music supervision and creating soundtracks to all these different sports shows on ESPN and shows on MTV. And it just coincided with, they had just done this concert at the Garden. They had all this footage and they knew it was something special. And I combined the two, and instantly we realized this was bigger than a digital release. This was a theatrical release, and we ended up bringing that to theaters. But that really sparked my relationship with Jay, and it's been 20 some odd years and allowed me the honor to be able to get and be a part of Rock Nation years down the road. But it was really one of those lifetime experiences to be a part of that whole thing.
I gotta know, when the whole process started with Kevin last summer with wanting a trade, and then the trading deadline wanting a trade, in your mind, what was the difference between the first time and quietly the second time?
I think, did you just say quietly?
Yeah, because he quietly wanted out, and a lot of people did not know. He had asked the Nets to kind of keep that quiet, and he ended up going to Phoenix.
That's your answer. I think that what happens in the NBA is a lot of times, because there's so much coverage and so much media attention and the names are so big and it's fun, we're all consumed by it. I am too, you are, we all are. You check these storylines out and it starts to feel like you're talking about war games. But when you really deal with it on a human level, especially when you're someone as incredible as he is and as credible as ownership in Brooklyn was, and the front office there, to be able to just sit down and have a conversation and express what you need and talk like that, good things usually come from those conversations. And that's how I feel, and maybe if I represented 40 players and, we had a different relationship, but when Kevin's on a team, I'm all in, because I don't rep other players. I'm his manager, I'm his agent, but we built a business. And, for me, it's when he's happy, it fuels everything. So that's how we approached it. And look what happened, and I also think we learned a lot from the summer. It wasn't off the rails thing. It's just the NBA, it's we had the free agency in the Hamptons. That was the thing. The free Brooklyn thing, that was a thing. And there's been so many things, but that's part of the NBA and part of being in business that I'm in, being in representing talent.
Yeah, the Hamptons thing was so fascinating to a lot of people because you let the teams come to you. But to me, that dovetailed LeBron's decision. You are in the business of looking at the next thing. When you look at today's NBA and where it's going, how do you think that the next crop of players will make their decisions kind of in an iconic way like Kevin and LeBron did?
Man, I love that question, because that's part of where I go next, right? I will work with other talent, but it will work within the ecosystem of what we've built, right? And they get to benefit from my media company. They get to benefit from Kevin's expertise and all the things that we've learned in this team we have in New York. But, I think there was this time where all athletes did earlier on was sponsorship deals, and a lot of times their business was so handled poorly off the court or off the field that the story. You'd always hear these famous stories, and you have the rare exceptions like a Junior Bridgman or Vinnie Microwave Johnson, who became these big moguls. But it was Magic, Bird, MJ, those guys, but there was really no space for everyone else. Then all of a sudden, LeBron just changed the whole game, and it became about building something that was yours during the time you're playing. And that changed everything, right? So now when young players come into the league, they're not just looking for sponsorship deals, which some do because you make money and you get notoriety and you get out there. Some don't want to do that work, but some are looking at it and saying, what can I learn about? What can I own one day? What can I build one day? What IP should I look at? And that's a gift and a curse. They definitely should be thinking all those things. Sometimes it's too early and you have to be patient. But the young players now have so many other ways to look at things. And if I was them, I would be partnering with some of these athletes before them that built these things. Not trying to compete, not trying to, innovate past them, but say like, yo, let's partner, Bron, or Steph, why don't you partner with this guy? Or KD and I can partner with this player and we start building IP together. We start building businesses together. And I think that will happen.